and warm welcome here in our studio in Serekunda. This is Star TV News and I am Dara Chan. In the headlines tonight, on COVID-19 updates, 2 patients await final test results, revealed Health Minister. Gambia's impending constitution subject ministerial appointments to National Assembly confirmation. Fire ravaged a compound in Ibo town in the early hours of Monday morning. On the international scene, South Korea sees slight delay in new coronavirus cases. The White House projects 100,000 to 240,000 US deaths from coronavirus. UK coronavirus death rise 27% in one day. Those were our headlines, and now the news in details. The Health Minister on Tuesday presided over a press briefing on the country's current situation regarding the COVID-19 pandemic at his ministry in Banjul, where he talked about various issues related to the coronavirus pandemic. Modu El-Baji was there and now he reports.
In some part of the world, the coronavirus has affected over dozens of people, while many has lost their lives. However, the Ministry of Health, Amadou Lamin Samate, set light on the Gambia's current situation on the coronavirus, where he indicated that 2 patients are currently waiting for their final results.
A total number of 14 samples were tested, and they all came out negative. Out of these, 2 were repeat tests conducted on the first case, and also the third case currently on admission. Both cases will be retested in a day or 2 for confirmation of recovery. That means if the 2 tests are repeated again and they turn out to be negative, the 2 individuals will be considered to have recovered from COVID-19. So we are awaiting the second test for each of those individuals. For a confirmed case to be declared as recovered, there should be 2 consecutive negative tests. Samples have been collected from the 5 people who completed their quarantine period, and the decision on their release from quarantine facilities would depend on the laboratory results. Samples have also been collected from 2 quarantined individuals who manifested symptoms similar to that of COVID-19. Cumulatively, the country still has a total of 4 COVID-19 confirmed cases and 1 probable case. 2 of the confirmed cases are currently receiving treatment at the MRC Gambia Medical Facility, whereas the latest confirmed case is receiving treatment at the Government Treatment Center. All 3 cases are responding to treatment, both clinically and psychologically. As a country, a total of 97 laboratory tests have been conducted to date, out of which 92 were negative, 4 were positive, and there is a single probable case. In addition to that, a total number of 247 persons have been placed on quarantine, and 168 contacts have been traced and have been actively followed up.
Minister Samate said they are getting reports that the Numuel community, the Markasa, and some of the health workers are being stigmatized by some individuals. Samate urged the general public to desist from such and support each other in the fight against the global pandemic, adding that those affected will need the help of the health officials and no one knows who will be the next victim. The health minister hailed the security apparatus for their relentless efforts gearing towards the fight against the pandemic, as they intercept foreigners who were trying their way in the country through our porous borders.
And vigilant, we continue to thank our security forces for being vigilant and alert. We are happy that they continue to intercept many people who enter the country and attempting to evade quarantine. Recently, 8 individuals who came by road from Sierra Leone were intercepted in Upper River region, and they are undergoing quarantine as we speak to you. It has also come to our notice that a lot of people use boats, fishing boats and other boats to evade the immigration officials, to evade the border posts, and come into the Gambia through illegal entry points. We urge all our citizens to be vigilant, to protect the Gambia's borders, and to report any of such cases, because a single case could mean disaster for our communities when they are not detected on time, when the necessary measures are not taken to ensure that if they are infected, the infection is controlled in specialized centers.
He advised Gambians to be vigilant on the visitors they receive, especially those living within the porous borders. Meanwhile, Minister Samate outlined how will they spend the $500 million which was given to the health sector by President Adama Barrow.
With regards to what the $500 million is the government pledged, what it will be spent on. And it is not just test kits. Managing an epidemic, a pandemic, it requires more than just procurement of test kits. A host of activities are involved. The sensitization costs money. Sensitizing the people. People need to be sensitized. You need to print sensitization material, posters, billboards, radio shows, advertisements, getting people moved from one area to the other, the communities, the Kanyelen groups, the talk show hosts, and so on and so forth. All these need to be taken care of, and they need funds. Now, capacity building. COVID-19, people need to be trained. Training materials need to be procured. The training itself will cost some money, of course. Sending people across the length and breadth of the country to go and train the healthcare workers everywhere they are. As we speak, the teams are going around. I think they are in Basse now, training people as to what to do. People need to be trained as to what they need to do to deal with the COVID-19, even though they are healthcare workers. Even the putting on of gloves, the putting on of protective equipment, people need to be trained as to what to do. The protocols, the management, even when they get the patient who is suspected, how to deal with that, people need to be trained. If a positive case is detected, how to treat that positive case, how to interact with that positive case, people need to be trained. So the training is very, very, very important as well. These people need to be given psychosocial support. And there are people who are going around giving that psychosocial support to these people. Now, you forgot that there are also people who are on the quarantine. They are staying in hotels, isn't it? Those hotels have to be paid for. It is not free. The hotels have to be paid for, and then the people have to be fed as well. You realize that we say there are 247 people in various hotels in the country. Each of those individuals have to be fed, and they have to be housed, and the hotels are paid for. Now, a host of things. Of course, you need vehicles to move people around. If there are cases, people need to travel in vehicles to go around to pick those cases, to do follow-up.
The Minister of Health called on the general public to remain calm and to call the 1025 if any detects the symptoms of the COVID-19. Reporting for Star TV, I am Modu Elbaji.
The final draft constitution submitted to the presidency on Monday has restricted the president's power to appoint his cabinet ministers without subjecting it to any confirmation of the National Assembly. Omar Job reports.
In a virtual press conference Tuesday, Justice Cherno Suleiman Jallow also informed the public about several other amendments from the in-use 1997 Constitution, including the removal of restrictions on the freedom of expression and the expiry term of incumbency after the presidential election. The president is given a free hand to nominate and appoint his or her vice president. However, ministerial appointments are subjected to National Assembly confirmation, which must be carried out within 14 days after. However, Jallow states that to ensure that the confirmation process is not politicized to frustrate a presidential nominee, Chapter 9 of the legislature has been modified to require confirmation to be made within a prescribed period of 14 days. Where it decides not to confirm a candidate, it is obligated on the legislature to provide its reasons to the president in writing within 3 days of that decision. Any failure in that regard shall deem a candidate to be approved. CRC chairperson further state that the National Assembly is to be guided by a certain established principle in such exercise, which include respecting the qualification and disqualification of candidates as contained in the Constitution, as well as respecting the guiding principles in respect to the office from which confirmation is required. Exercising good judgment without concentrating on differences of ideology, beliefs or political affiliations, and treating candidates for confirmation with respect. In essence, the role of the National Assembly in any confirmation is to aid and assist the President without impeding the President. Meanwhile, Chapter I of the draft, which comprised 6 sections, and it recognized that the Gambia is a sovereign republic and a multi-party democratic state. A new provision has also been added to declare that the Gambia comprises the people of different faiths and each faith is to be respected and treated fairly without any discrimination. It also prohibits the National Assembly from enacting any law establishing any religion in the country as a state religion. Omar Diop reporting for Star TV News.
In the early hours of Monday, a fire outbreak took place in Town, burning up to 5 houses, consuming an amount of 850,000 and other valuable items, including beds, chairs, and other household items. Binta Kohli was there and she now reports.
Mohammed, who is a resident at the compound and also a victim, said the fire started in the morning at a time he and his wife were watching TV, and all of a sudden the TV went off and he decided to went out to check what happened. But upon arrival, he noticed that there was an electric spark. Then fire started to come out from the electric meter in the compound. According to him, he went to bring water to put off the fire, but unfortunately the fire extended and burnt 5 houses in the compound. Mohammed added, even though the fire claimed no life, 2 of his neighbors that came to their aid got wounds in their struggle to get in the house to help put the fire out. According to him, many valuable materials were burnt, which will take a lot of time and effort to replace. Mariama, a mother and also a daughter, said when the fire started, his last son was inside one of the houses sleeping while she was out fetching water. She saw a large smoke coming from her house. Only then did she rush to save her son, but she fell down upon entering the room because she was not seeing due to the large smoke. I used my hand to search my son, and luckily enough, I was able to touch his leg, which I used to pull him towards me, she lamented. A mother to one of the victims said, the fire have destroyed a lot of things and they are left with nothing at the moment. She thanked all the neighbors and the fire and rescue services for coming to their aid. She also urges government and people to come to their aid, as that will help greatly. For Star TV News, I am Binta Kohli.
And now the news beyond our borders. South Korea is continuing to see a slight delay in new coronavirus cases on Wednesday, but that news is tempered by an emerging cluster of infected patients, according to a midday report. But the East Asian nation's largely successful approach has been held by the health ministers around the world. Al Jazeera Rob Margaret reports from Seoul on the reason why.
Along the banks of the Han River, many people are doing what they haven't done for weeks, venturing outside, enjoying the spring sunshine and the cherry blossom, but with reminders everywhere to maintain social distancing of at least 2 meters apart. Other signs warn that as crowds build, the avenues of cherry trees will have to be closed.
I guess it's okay for people to see the cherry blossom and enjoy it before they close the road.
On the whole, South Korea has chosen not to enforce the kind of harsh measures adopted by neighboring China, also now emerging from its own crisis.
The international community should consider their own situations and review both the Chinese and South Korean approaches and apply the measures that work best in their own countries.
South Korea's guiding principle in fighting the disease has been to get the voluntary support of the public rather than imposing lockdowns or completely closing borders. With the outbreak seemingly under control, it's a strategy that appears to have worked. The government's transparent handling of the outbreak has won the general trust of the people. And although new cases continue to be reported, there's a feeling the worst is over.
As you know, arrivals at Incheon Airport are being tested for the virus at the walk-through testing station. Personally, I don't think we are in a serious situation.
At this moment, just follow the Korean way. That's the only way to resolve the issue.
Looking at other parts of the world which are now in the midst of crisis or just starting to grapple with what South Korea has already gone through is reason for many here to be thankful. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
US President Donald Trump is warning Americans to prepare for the hard days that lay ahead after listening to top government scientists on where the coronavirus curve has headed. The country saw its highest single-day death toll with more than 800 deaths. White House health officials say the virus could kill up to 240,000 people nationwide. Al Jazeera Mike Hanna reports from Washington, D.C.
For the first time, the task force presented its predictions of where this pandemic may be heading, saying this could now be done because of a more detailed flow of information from across the country.
Thank you very much.
The scientists say the virus could kill between 100,000 and 240,000 Americans, but without efforts like social distancing, countermeasures like shutdowns, the toll could go far higher. They've modeled a worst-case scenario of 1.5 million to 2.2 million deaths.
So what we're going to see, and that's we got to brace ourselves, in the next several days to a week or so, we're going to continue to see things go up. We cannot be discouraged by that because the mitigation is actually working and will work.
A somber President Trump said the mitigation measures were a matter of life and death.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead. We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. And then hopefully, as the experts are predicting, as I think a lot of us are predicting after having studied it so hard, you're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. But this is going to be a very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks.
In the city at the epicenter of the pandemic, the rate of infection continues to rise. The number of hospital admissions in New York City increased by 12% in the last 24-hour period. And in Central Park, a field hospital will be ready by late Wednesday.
Everyone is subject to this virus. It is the great equalizer. I don't care how smart, how rich, how powerful you think you are. I don't care how young, how old. This virus is the great equalizer.
Nearly 190,000 people have now tested positive for the virus in all 50 states plus Washington, D.C. And as the models show, this number is increasing by the hour. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
The number of deaths from coronavirus in the UK rose by 27% on Tuesday. A government minister has called on the spike deeply shocking as the country's health service struggle to get a grip on the crisis. Critics says the government was slow to contain the pandemic, but health workers are finally starting to get tested and more ventilators are arriving next week. Al Jazeera's Rory Chala reports from London.
Happy birthday. This is how we socialise now in 2020. A socially distanced birthday party for a 90-year-old man in Sheffield. Dennis Richmond's neighbours found a way to celebrate while staying far enough apart to not spread coronavirus.
I still think you're all bonkers. Nice to have survived 90 years. You're all welcome to my 100th, by the way.
But while Dennis is still going strong, new figures released by Britain's National Health Service show a huge increase in COVID-19 deaths. 381 in 24 hours. That's nearly double Monday's tally. But these daily figures from the National Health Service may be undercounting UK deaths by, say, 20%, because they're only tallying up the number of people who die inside Britain's hospitals. And new figures are starting to come out, published by the Office of National Statistics. They're slower to compile, but they look at deaths anywhere where the death certificate registers COVID-19 as a possible cause, people dying in their homes or in care homes. And the ONS is counting more. The government is insisting the huge shortage of ventilators for critically ill patients will start being filled next week.
Orders have been placed with consortia led by Ford, Airbus, the Formula One racing teams, including McLaren, GKN Aerospace, and Rolls-Royce and Dyson's. And I can announce that this weekend, the first of thousands of new ventilator devices will roll off the production line and be delivered to the NHS next week.
The economic toll of all this continues to mount as 2 planes arrived at London's Gatwick repatriating Britons home from Peru. British Airways shut down its operations at the airport. It follows EasyJet grounding its entire fleet on Monday. The UK's airports, like its city centres, cafes, museums, restaurants and shops, are almost completely empty. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera, London.
Countries across the world are racing to find a vaccine for coronavirus in the United Kingdom. There is a call out for the volunteers to participate in human trials. Al Jazeera Neith Tabaka reports from London.
Scientists are at war with COVID-19. Dozens of laboratories are now battlegrounds in the race for a vaccine. Here at Oxford University, volunteers' blood samples are prepared for testing ahead of the first human trials of a vaccine. The blood will be checked for antibodies and any T-cell response to the virus. T-cells can recognize and destroy infected cells. And here in Germany, one small company, part funded by Microsoft billionaire Bill Gates, says it too will soon have a vaccine ready for human trials. It may look like slow work, but things are moving at breakneck speed. It can take decades to develop a vaccine. This lab wants one much sooner.
People are saying, well, that could be 1 year to 18 months, which of course is much shorter than a normal development for vaccines that can be 10, 15, even 20 years.
This is the enemy. Corona means crown in Latin, named because of the spikes on the virus's outer coat. This crown is also its weakness. The vaccines under development contain the genetic sequence of this surface spike, which primes the immune system to attack the virus if it later infects the body.
But what about those most at risk of contracting the virus? Symptoms can range from a runny nose to a sore throat to a fever. But it can escalate quickly among people with respiratory problems or underlying health issues into full-blown pneumonia. One team of British scientists believes our best line of defence lies deep in our lungs.
They've developed this inhaler to help restore levels of a substance called interferon beta in people's lungs, vital for removing viruses from the body. Unhealthy lungs lack interferon beta. Levels also naturally deplete with age, which is why elderly people are more at risk of contracting the virus.
Patients with lung disease, diabetes, pre-existing heart and cardiovascular disease, they get the inhalation once a day for 2 weeks to increase the viral immunity in the lung, to prevent the virus from replicating and eliminating the virus more effectively.
The virus has led to an acceleration in engineering. This rapid COVID-19 test has been developed by the German company Bosch. Blood samples are inserted into the cartridge for analysis. It takes 2.5 hours for a result, and it's 95% accurate. But it could be many months before the equipment's readily available. Meanwhile, a number of firms, including the British vacuum maker Dyson, aeroplane maker Airbus and the Formula One team McLaren, are now racing to develop breathing aids to meet urgent demand. No single company or laboratory can do this alone. It requires international effort and resources. The world's best brains have been mobilised. Our greatest hope lies in science. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. On COVID-19 updates, 2 patients await final test result, revealed Health Minister. Gambia's impending constitution subject her ministerial appointment to National Assembly confirmation. Fire ravaged a compound in Ibo town in the early hours of Monday morning. South Korea sees slight delay in new coronavirus cases. White House project 100,000 to 240,000 US deaths from coronavirus. UK coronavirus death rise 27% in 1 day. That's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us for tomorrow's news. Thank you.